Yalimadın, and welcome to a special episode of Four Chais. This limited series began at Global Encounters in Dubai, and today we complete that journey here in Dallas. Four Chais brings together Ismailis from all around the world. They always arrive as strangers, but through open conversation, they quickly find connection and community. Normally, 4 is our magic number, but because today's topic is becoming more and more prevalent, 4 just didn't feel like enough, so we've widened the circle. Our focus? The impact of screens and the growing challenge of digital isolation. But today's episode is all about hope. To that end, we've brought together a truly varied group of experts, Ismaili and not, to offer practical tools, helpful hacks, and supportive practices for those struggling with their screen habits and for loved ones trying to help. So let's begin. As per our usual format, we will introduce our participants to one another with what we refer to as 20 questions. So for those of you here, I will ask a series of questions. If the answer is yes, you simply do this gesture, your right hand over your heart. If it doesn't apply to you, you do nothing. And as always, please feel free to play along at home. So let's begin. Who here talks to yourself in the car? Oh wow. Oh wow. It's occupational hazard apparently. Who here has a sweet tooth? Wow, okay. Who here has had their heart broken? Who here had an imaginary friend growing up? Okay, who was your imaginary friend?
A unicorn. Yeah.
And the name of the unicorn?
Unicorn.
Very. Who here threatened to run away as a child if they didn't get what they wanted? How far did you get?
To my grandparents' house across the street.
Okay. Who here was bullied as a child? Who here had dreams in which they could fly? Who went through a phase where you didn't like your own name? Who went through a phase where you didn't like your own home? Who here felt like they had to grow up fast? Who here had a parent who was really hard on you? Who here is a dreamer? Who here would say they're a realist? You can be both. Who allows the side dishes on their plate to mix and blend with one another? Okay, that is gross. I never said this was a safe zone. No, that is gross. Who feels like their lives have become overscheduled? Who here is often running late? I appreciate the honesty. Who here has loved ones who struggle with their screen dependence? Who here thinks they themselves often spend too much time on screens? Who here finds himself reaching for their phone even when there's nothing to check? Who takes their phone to the bathroom?
What else are you doing in there? What else are you doing in there?
Well done for your boundaries. Who feels like screens have made society feel more divided? Who's ever looked around and realized everybody is on their phones? So, we're obviously living in this unprecedented moment where we are spending more and more of our lives on screens. From your point of view, any of you, what do you think the biggest impact is of that shift, of spending more and more time in the screen world?
I think it's a disconnection. I think that people feel a false sense of connection on their screens, and they feel like they have relationships with people that they barely know. And so it ends up being a lot of depression and anxiety and things like that, because that connection is so essential to being human and fulfillment and happiness and joy. And you just can't get that from being on the screen all the time.
You know, I think we're more distracted because you have instant access to anything. So it could be a text message from a friend or a spouse. It could be a sports alert. It could be anything. And I think that does make us seem a little bit more disconnected because anybody can access you at any time and you can fill your life with distraction at any time. So I do think that is slightly problematic.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
I think two things. Sleep is the biggest thing that I've seen, especially with the teenagers. Sleep just goes out the door. And also like the ability to just be present. Because if any type of screen is involved, then there's engagement, there's excitement, there's joy, there's novelty. And to be able to not do that feels very awkward and odd and uncomfortable. So I think those are really some big shifts I've seen.
I think it would also impact the adaptability, because I think flexibility and adaptability are so critical and pivotal to human development and growth. And so the over-reliance on tech creates self-doubt and self-esteem related challenges. So being able to adapt to newer environments or being able to challenge themselves in newer settings, I think that may be compromised.
Along those lines, I think there's a big shift in reality testing. I think so much of the digital life is curated, and you don't like an opinion, toss it out, and the algorithm will only give you the things you like. You're in a bad space, guess what? You're going to get 10 million other posts that'll keep you there, or even make you sink further. So there is no idea, like there's no concept of it's okay if someone has a different opinion than me. It doesn't threaten my ego or my safety. People will say things that I will not like, and I will have to find a way not only to still kind of be calm about it, but also be able to intelligently kind of speak to why it doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Amy.
I would just add that I think there's more fractured attention, and along with distraction, it comes multitasking. And it might be multitasking while you're driving. It could be multitasking while you're working or while you're interacting with your loved ones. And so what used to be really focused time is now split in a million different directions. And I feel personally like I'm less present in those moments because I am trying to do too many things and think that I have superpowers I don't have.
That you can keep all the plates spinning.
Absolutely.
Got it. Anything you want to add? Because I realize we've gone around, so I want to just check in with you as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the in-person collaboration gets really, non-existent, right? Because if I have a random question in my head or a random thought, I will just go online, Google it. I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. Or I'll go find somebody who shares the same opinion as I do. And so I'm not interacting with anybody who may have a different opinion or more information, or I can do all of that without ever speaking to anybody. And that is cutting off that connection with each other and keeping present in what we're trying to do and think about as a group.
What do you see as the core issue behind our struggles with screens? Like, what is the thing that's driving it? Because yes, screens are addictive, but what is it that's making us turn to it? What is the core issue from each of your practices that you think is going on behind the scenes that is making us turn more to screens?
I would say like instant gratification and just a hit of dopamine from all of the different apps that you can get. So we get very used to I know right now, I get what I want right now, I get that hit of dopamine that I'm looking for, and that again takes me out of the real world and puts me into this digital world that I'm getting these needs met where I really should be getting them met in person.
And dopamine, for someone who doesn't know, what is this chemical dopamine that's so essential here?
I describe it to people as like it's the feel-good chemical, right? It's the thing, like if you're on a roller coaster or you're doing something new or you have a great experience, you usually feel like, oh, that was great, because dopamine said, hey, that is great. It got released into your system. You're like, I would like more of that, please. And so that's what we do, right? I like that feeling, I'm gonna do more. I like that feeling, I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna check how many likes. Oh, I like how many likes I've got. I'm gonna do more. Like it just kind of feeds on itself.
So the screen is, because it's all new. It's always new.
Right.
Ah. Did you want to jump in there? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love how you said that. Once you get that hit of dopamine, right, your brain's like, oh, this was awesome. I want more. I want more. And then it comes, crashing into this other phenomenon, which is called like desensitization, right? Like if any of you has gone shopping and found like the perfect top and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is my jam, right? You get it, you wear it. And then like, next year it's like there's a party coming. You're like, I'm not really about this top anymore. And it's not because the top changed, right? But it's because your brain no longer is able to derive the same pleasure from it. Like it organically isn't able to produce that same dopamine burst that it did the very first time you saw that top. And so that's why I think, for better or worse, digital media has these innovative ways of like, oh, something new, something new, something new. Oh, the possibility of something new. And it just draws us in, organically.
Jeremy, you work a lot with video games,
Yes.
which is an interesting perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, to that realm, like with video games, I noticed like there's so many different kinds that the type of game that someone's playing is meeting a need that they're trying to fulfill that they can't maybe fulfill in the real world. It's not all the time, but a lot of times if there's an issue with school or with relationships, they're trying to get that need met online. And so that can happen also, I think, with social media or just with being online too, is trying to meet a need that they're not getting filled elsewhere. So they're trying to get like mastery is a big one. They're trying to get like, I want to do well in school, but they're not doing very well in school. So they're going to a game and they are really good in this game. So they fail out, but they are fantastic in this one video game. It could be social connection, right? It's like, okay, so not really able to connect with people in person, IRL, but they are able to connect with a Discord where it's just either chat or it's just maybe even a voice call. So they are able to connect in different ways online because it's very, very specific what their interests are. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, what do you like to do? And, oh, I don't like any of that. So then they disconnect and they don't even try. And so, but there are billions of people online, so you can connect with someone who has a similar interest, who could be across the country. So those are a couple. Being able to definitely find mastery, it could be trying to find connection, trying to escape. If there's a stress as well, like it could be a way to escape or to be able to respond to stress too.
I think kind of going off of what you said earlier, it is really, and I don't know if this is chicken and or the egg type of situation, but I think it's really hard for people to be present. And so, a lot of the work I do with clients is go to Starbucks and, look up, like put your phone in your pocket and look up and say hi to someone. And that's really scary because they're so used to being able to grab their phone if they have any kind of discomfort. And so, I think it just kind of feeds on itself as they continue to use this device to not have to be present or have any discomfort in their life.
Yeah.
I think our brains also get really tired. In psychology, you'd call it cognitive fatigue, but in practice, it's just we're on the go and we're interacting with a lot of people, we're juggling a lot of information, and our brains get tired. I know I'm an ambivert, so I'm not an introvert, I'm not an extrovert, but when I've spent a lot of time with people, I need to come back into myself. And when I was younger, I used to do that I would lay on my bed and I would stare up at the ceiling, and that was it was a strategy. It was called staring at the ceiling. And now I personally will turn to my device, and I know it's a temptation for a lot of people that it feels like the phone doesn't require anything out of you. It's just you being able to space out, and that leads to the doom scrolling. And the problem is that once we start the doom scroll, then you get the hits from dopamine and then you don't want to stop. And so being aware of when that moment is has become a real challenge.
Okay. Anyone else want to talk about core needs that are being met by screens?
Yeah, so I think I'd like to talk about one positive one, which we
Yeah.
haven't done yet, which is
Yeah.
just information. I mean, like when I was growing up, I was a nerdy kid whose parents would drop him off at the library, and I would read books for hours. And you might think, oh man, that's so great. I wish I wish every kid would just do that. But actually now, I just look stuff up on my phone because it's so much easier and it's relevant. And when my kids sometimes ask me a question, if I know the answer, I might tell them to look it up on their phone because sometimes I want them to learn the process of how to look for things.
Yeah.
So I think one of the other core things that happens with screens is gathering knowledge or gathering information. When I put in the address to this place that we met at, I was like, what does this word, Jamaat
Jamaat-khana?
Yeah, what does it mean? And now I know it's a gathering place.
Yeah.
House of people.
Right,
Yeah.
house of people. I didn't know that before. And I think that is a core human desire, is to know things and to understand things. And I think when we talk about teenagers and young adults, I think even though they make us seem like they know everything, they know they don't know everything. So I think that becomes a source. Why is it when I'm in the clinic, a patient says, well, Dr. Blankson, I think I have autism. Well, where'd they get that from?
Yeah.
They went to their source of information, TikTok, and they saw a video that said they had autism, right? So I think sometimes our youth are actually using this because they want to gather more information to learn more about themselves.
So that's interesting. So the idea of being on a screen, there are many different uses. There's WhatsApp, connecting with people. There's looking for information. So not all time on the screen is bad. Yet, so many people will mark as a barometer screen time as a way of figuring out how bad, like kids and screen time. So can you talk a bit about that? Is screen time a good, accurate measure of well-being?
I would say that it's not. And I think when we talk about connection in real life and like trying to encourage individuals to connect more through, face-to-face experiences, sometimes what happens is that there's disconnection that already exists in the real life that they experience. So they turn to social media and other technological platforms to find that connection, right? So I think when you gauge or measure it that way through screen time, it's not always a good measure or metric of well-being because they may be using it more consciously, intentionally, and proactively to ensure that they're able to find connections and that they have someone to talk to. So I think there's a bit of positivity around that as well.
Yeah, because I feel like most people will say more screen time bad, less screen time good.
No.
And so that seems to be a barometer. What else thinks about that? Like how to make that more specific?
Yeah. So I break down screen time into three big categories: social, productive, and entertainment.
Okay.
All screen time, I think you're going to fall into one of these three categories. If we're working, if we're doing, all productive things, emails and kind of answering calls and doing all this work stuff, and that's all in that work bucket, and it can be very productive, very healthy, and very good. Then we're able to connect with people too. Like social bucket is all the social media, all trying to connect, all the stuff also within that social connection element. And then fun is in the entertainment bucket. Anything within the gaming world, anything within the YouTube, we're kind of watching content that's just fun. So if we're able to kind of break it down in those three ways, and rather than seeing it as like, oh, screen time is bad, but what type of screen time did you engage with today? And what did that do for you? It's good to help our kiddos and us explore, like, what is it doing for us, rather than, us being just a product that we're just consuming.
Do you come up against this like pseudo productivity, like this rationalization of like, yeah, I was watching that show because it was a storyline about somebody feeling suicidal, and I need to write about what to do when your friend is feeling suicidal, and you're like, really? I mean, is that But it's really hard to counter that when someone's really like advocating, like, no, of course I use this for work, and all of these things are relevant to me, and yada yada. Like, how do you help them distinguish further?
Yeah, good question. I would help unpack a little bit of what's the outcome, what's the product? If they are working, then what work did you do? What did that look like? What does help unpack? It's great that you're able to do this and can learn about this. So what were the outcomes? What did you understand about this information from this? And then how do you then respond to it in different ways? So I think trying to unpack more of not just what they were doing, but what was the outcome of that could be a way to help understand more of that.
I like this idea of giving them a lens to which they can see the different uses of their screen time. Anyone else have other ways that you can help younger people really understand the different motivations they're using of turning to the screen that can empower them to sort of make better choices? Because again, otherwise, on my screen, I feel guilty, I feel bad, I shouldn't be here. Any other tools that people have to help them differentiate good screen time versus bad screen time?
Yeah, so I'd say that in my medical practice, I generally talk about screen time in the context of other habits, or healthy habits or life traits. So I kind of go through sleep, I go through diet, I go through exercise, and screen time is one of them. So in the context of a kid who tells me, hey, I'm getting 9 hours of sleep, I've got A's and B's, I'm eating fruits and vegetables, I exercise, oh, and I like play video games for 2 hours, and I'm on social for an hour. I don't get super crazy about that. We kind of talk about that and then we move on. There's another kid who will say, I'm failing out of school, I get 6 hours of sleep, I'm on TikTok for 4 hours, same amount of screen time as the other kid. And I'm like, I wonder if there's a place where you could maybe, cut down on something to get more sleep. I wonder if there's a way you could cut down on something to go get tutoring. And that's when we talk about the screen time. So I like your breakdown, Jeremy, because it's actually very helpful. But I think you think about opportunity costs, and you're like, hey, man, you're really tired all the time, but you're spending so much time on your phone or so much time gaming. Like, maybe if you cut down on that, you'd have more time to do something else that could be more important to you. So helping young people understand opportunity costs, I think, is really powerful.
Great. And is that your worksheet that you have?
So I have a worksheet that helps kind of break down 8 different areas of someone's life and kind of help break down, well, what does the healthiest version of yourself look like in how screen use is impacted by it. So we look at different activities, diversified activities, your friendships, your peer relationships, exercise, sleep and hygiene. You've got education, parent relationships and or dating relationships, and then mental and spiritual health. And then all those areas you can look at it, is it healthy, kind of the wheel of life, kind of the balanced kind of wheel of life kind of we're talking about here. And so if it's really balanced and healthy, then screen time is adding to these areas, similar to what Dr. Blanks is talking about. Or it can be taking away from it. I'm spending so much time online, I'm neglecting my responsibilities and my relationships, my marriage, but whatever it may be. And so this can be a great way to help understand, well, how can we balance it? This is all about kind of balancing. A lot of what I talk about with my clients is screen use is food.
Yep.
How we interact with screens can be intentional. How much we consume and what we consume matters for our health and our well-being.
So I would add that at the Digital Wellness Institute, we talk about this idea of digital flourishing, because when we first started talking to folks about their own digital well-being, people are familiar with your physical health, they're familiar with your mental health. You could say, I'm feeling good or bad, I know where I'm at. When we started to talk about digital well-being, we had no framework, we had no definitions. And so we began to create language and tools around this. And so in a very simplistic view, it's a swing, if you imagine a continuum between digital addiction or overuse, and on the other side is digital detox, where you swear off social media or technology, step away. Right in the middle is what we call digital flourishing, which is that sweet spot where you're in control of your technology, not the other way around. And I think that it builds in this kind of element that everybody's talking about here, balance, which is so important. But just having that frame of reference, like, what do I want to look like? Where am I right now? And what do I need to do to get back to that positive view of what I want my life to look like?
So let me ask you this, following up on that. For someone who's watching this now, what question should they be asking themselves about their screen use or what they do on screen to know if it's in the good category or the bad category? Because you said, I control it, it doesn't control me. Mm-hmm. What question can they ask themselves tonight about different things they do online to figure out which category it falls in?
So there's actually several questions. It's not just one question, because I think there's many aspects of our lives. So we created the digitalflourishingsurvey.com, and you can go there for free. You can take the whole survey, and it'll break down into 8 areas, very similar to what Jeremy mentioned about what areas of your life you're flourishing in and which areas maybe you need to recalibrate a little bit. And I think about it for students, I think about productivity. Maybe you are doing really well on your schoolwork and you've been spending a lot of hours writing an essay on your computer, but maybe your relationships are taking a hit because you've been overly focused on getting things done. So maybe it's time to reinvest in your relationships. And I think just having that mental framework of, okay, I feel like I'm a little bit off balance, let's come back and readjust.
I've talked to people about cultivating their social media. Now we have an algorithm that just feeds us and feeds us and feeds us. And if we aren't careful, it will just feed us into negative or whatever. And so if we want to make this a positive experience, we have to pay attention, like, what are we consuming? So, you know, me personally, when I realize I'm scrolling TikTok, I'm like, everything is sad. Like, everything is really bad. When I notice myself feeling that way, I'll like search like panda videos. Right? And now I get more panda videos. Then I'll search like inspirational talks. Now I get more inspirational talks. So I pull myself out of the algorithm that I have accidentally fallen into, and now I don't feel like the world's on fire, which is nice.
My Instagram feed is all red pandas too.
All right.
That's really hard.
I think for teenagers to do. I mean, that's great. As adults, I think we can do that, but it's so hard, I think, for teenagers to make that pivot sometimes, because they find themselves on group chats and they just find themselves receiving, you know, all this input, and then now they have to, oh man, I am seeing all this sad content, but what's gonna trigger them to say, hey, I need to get out of it? And I think that's where trusted adults and therapists and people like Jeremy, and, you know, this is how we help them, you know, see, well, maybe there's another way. And maybe this is where, for some of them, they do need to put their phones away.
A lot of the people that we spoke with were 35 and under. And so there was a little bit more capacity there for self-evaluation.
Sure.
But I don't think, again, I think a lot of them are screen time bad. Screen time comes with guilt, as opposed to really being able to say some litmus test of, is this productive? Does this make me feel good? Does this make me feel bad? Did I choose this? Did it just show up? Any other techniques or strategies for people to evaluate their own cell phone use?
Yeah, in my work, I think what I found really helpful is teaching them how to assess and do an inventory of their emotions. So like every day checking in with themselves, and also understanding, like, after they come home from school, or if there's dinner time or what have you, what are they really looking for, and what does it feel like to not actually have their phone physically present with them? So what I'll usually ask them to do is actually ask them to hold their phone in their hand while I'm in the session, and they'll hold it up, and I'll say, okay, now put your phone under and your hand on top and ask, what do you need? And just that mere like flipping of that narrative, or like just the change itself, it helps them realize that I'm actually bored, or my homework sucks and I want to procrastinate, or like I just broke up with my girlfriend. And there's just so many things to it that they're now just able to assess and do an inventory of their emotions and thoughts that they're carrying.
So before they pick up their phone, covering it, and then making intention of what is it they're looking for. I should do that. Because I don't know if anyone else has this. My phone jumps into my hand, starts scrolling by itself, and I'm on a journey that I never signed up for. Anyone else? I love that as a takeaway, because ideally, beyond sort of, I want them to be able to have things after they watch this that they can do. Anybody else have any hacks that can help them figure out what is the intention behind what they're doing, evaluating the screen use themselves?
This kind of goes off of what you're talking about and what everybody else has talked about.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, the biggest question is, how do you feel afterwards, right? So you mentioned, like, I just want to sit with my phone and scroll. And I have so many clients that say that. Like, I just need time and I can just sit there and scroll. But really, do you feel better afterwards? You may feel like anxiety or drained, or you don't feel that life-giving thing that you get from like taking a good walk or anything like that actually gives you more energy, right? And so I think being able to go, okay, these are my habits. I usually grab from my phone at this time. Is that productive? Does it make me feel better? Maybe. Awesome. Great. But is it over here? Is it not? I mean, with a lot of my clients, I have them put just different kind of apps on their phone. So there's a Freedom app. There's some other kind of apps that you can do to manage your social media and your intake more. And you can cut that time off at like 10 minutes and go, okay, how am I feeling right now? So that it cuts it off for you. And then you've got that automatic stop where you have to kind of engage with yourself and go, do I want to continue to do this?
Other hacks, other tips. I can't remember what we're talking. Yes, go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So grayscale is a really good one that you can put on your phone. And so it can be a really quick access. Sometimes it can be like a triple tap of your home button or whatever you have it set up as on your phone or iOS or Android phone, but it just makes the phone go into a grayscale where it's very disengaging. You don't want to spend a lot of time scrolling on it because it doesn't look very engaging at all. There's no color. You can see what's on there, but the content is just, it's just not very enticing. So it really is, you might go on Instagram, whatever it may be, but it's not going to be very engaging. So that's a really easy one that you can set up on your phone.
I think people kind of get scared when I mention is that I just turned the notifications off, all of them across the board. And I kind of did this as an experiment for myself a little while ago. And really the first day I was like, just compulsively checking like, oh, what did I miss? And then after a while, that behavior just got so exhausting that I just stopped. And then before long, even just like not having to hear the buzz or like see the notification pop up and bug you when you're trying to do something else or you're just trying to have a conversation, it was so freeing.
We asked in Dubai. And the majority of the audience said yes. So that's great. That's great because they're at the whim of these notifications that pop up.
I also know that if I decide for myself, okay, you know what? I'm going to check my emails, my texts, whatever, once a day. For me, it works, right? It has to be kind of curated for you individually. Then that also lets me off the hook, thinking like, okay, well, I know that if I'm going to answer, my boss will figure it out, or my patients will figure out, okay, you know what? It's the weekend. She's probably not going to answer until, Monday morning. So that's okay. Like people adjust if we set boundaries, but I think we're just so scared to set those boundaries, right? That they just never get set, and then the environment just sort of, ups the ante.
Yeah.
So when you're afraid to set boundaries, maybe your spouse will set it for you. I mean, I had a moment where I was like so proud of myself for being off of, Twitter for like 2 weeks, and she slyly said, "Oh, I went into your phone and I turned off your notifications," and it really helped. And I was mad for like a minute, but honestly, if you have somebody who you care about and you trust, and these 35-year-olds who you polled, like if you have somebody who you trust, maybe you ask them, "Hey, I can't do this. I don't have the self-control that you have to turn off my notifications." Maybe somebody who you trust would go in and maybe help you with that.
So that's a fascinating experiment. So you did it without him knowing.
Yeah.
I did.
And you noticed a difference.
I noticed a huge difference.
It took
I
about a
told her.
week.
I was like, I feel so much better. And then she just got really quiet. I was like, what's that face? What's that face, Amy? I was like, yeah, I see what happened.
Any other hacks or tips? Anything else? Yeah.
What you could do is get rewarded for being away from your phone. And so you can get a app called, I believe, Pocket Points, where it rewards you for being away from your phone. It rewards you different restaurants. I believe it's for employers, and I think they're working on something for families. Then also Forest is an app that you turn it on and a forest grows. You put your phone away and a forest grows and grows and grows. But you pick up the phone before the timer's up, the forest dies. You don't make any progress. And so it can help you in almost gamifying doing something productive while you're working on an assignment, while you're having dinner, while you're doing something else. And so it can help you not be on your device, incentivize you not to be on your device while you're doing something else.
I love that.
So in our family, we've been testing out Brick, which is a physical square device that you actually have to put your phone up against, and it will block apps that you choose for a certain period of time until you come back to the Brick. So if the Brick is left at home, you can't get to your apps unless there's an emergency button if you have to access something. But for the most part, I use it to block my games so that I can focus when I need to focus. And I think there's something tangible about having a physical device that really helps create that buffer. And we can do it as a family together. We could brick our phones during a movie or during a dinner time.
A lot of what we're talking about is being really intentional, right? And so I think anything that makes it harder to get to the places that you always go and get lost in is going to be helpful. So, I have clients take all the social media off of their phone and they just can access it through their computers. So you can't even get to it unless you go to your actual computer and log in and do all of the things that you need to do there. So I think it's just those little things that make it, you have to take one more step and go, do I really want to get on this thing and spend some time here? That can be really helpful.
What else you got?
Yeah, we had a mutual friend who did a very simple intervention where on his home screen, he made a self-made sign that said, "My intention is." So every time he picked up his phone, the home screen said, "My intention is." And he would pause and say, "Well, I can't come up with anything. I guess I'm putting it down," right? Which is just so simple and practical. I mean, you could have pictures of your kids or, other things on your home screen. But for him, having that "my intention is" was just so simple. So every time he picked it up, he had to ask that question and answer.
I also love the idea of a home screen that doesn't have apps on it.
Yeah.
Like a blank home screen is a very different thing because if I pick it up and it's got all these options, it's like a menu of things that I can turn to. I want to talk a bit about self-esteem that both parents had said and kids sort of echoed that they're struggling when they find self-esteem in the real world when it's quantifiable through screens. Hundreds of people like what you did. It's such a big hit of that. How do we navigate, or how can they navigate self-esteem in a world where the world is looking at you? Any ideas for that? Because it's a very tricky thing. Yeah.
I mean, I think we do that not just in the social media world, but in person too, where we talk to our clients about your self-worth coming from inside of you instead of from the outside world. So it's not dependent on who thinks you're pretty, who thinks you're smart, who thinks you're whatever, right? Like you deciding who you are, what your identity is, what are the things that you like and know about yourself on a regular basis, right? So I have people kind of keep a list of like things they know about themselves, and it can be silly stuff like I like black coffee, I don't like stuff in my coffee, all the way to like I know when I say the word lonely, I cry. Like, okay, so here's just stuff that I know about me and I accept about me, and so I can lean into that versus what do you think about me? What does this person think about me? How many likes did I get on this picture? Like, what did this activity when I posted it get back from everybody? So you're kind of you shift that focus from everybody on the outside world, and like including in your life and social media, to something internally.
I love that, because I guess that follows the idea that when people see likes, they adjust and bend who they are.
Right, it becomes currency.
And so what's the North Star of who you actually are? People forget. People forget. That's great. That's great. Anything else with self-esteem? Yeah.
I would go to what we talked about earlier, is quantity is not nearly as good as quality. And so when you get thousands of likes, that's great, but to have a buddy go to you and say, that was awesome, like look you in the eye, give you a pat on the back, and really mean it, that relationship means 1,000 times more than people that you don't know just giving you validation for some video you made, I think. And so being able to provide at least like legitimate, like really good in-person validation and building self-esteem and empowerment, that I think speaks a lot more, especially to our youth. When we are the ones as parents providing that and as guides and as mentors to provide that means so much.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've done is I actually asked ChatGPT to help make a list of affirmations for me. I printed it out on physical paper and I put it beside my computer screen. So during the day, if I had a low point or I start to question myself, I can read over the affirmations, and it was great. I actually added some by hand because it spurred other thoughts. I also find that ChatGPT is amazing at being able to kind of reflect back and be a mirror for yourself sometimes. So if you're having a particularly low day, you could ask ChatGPT to summarize a paragraph about who you are as a person. You will never feel better about yourself because it's sycophantic. It makes you feel good, right? It's affirming. And if your ego starts to get too big, you can ask ChatGPT to roast you, and that will bring you right back up. I haven't had the courage for that one yet.
What did you input to ChatGPT to get the list of affirmations?
I said, give me 20 affirmations that I can read to myself in the morning. And because it's been learning a little bit about me over time, it knew the things I was passionate about, maybe some of the things that I was working on. And so it had insight that I needed, that I could have asked my husband to make them.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, on top of repair, I'm an amazing hype man.
Isn't that true that the voices we know the most become white noise?
Yep.
Like, from family, from parents, if they say something great, it doesn't seem to resonate as much as a stranger. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that I do or focus on is multi-generational work around digital wellness. So like if there's a family with grandparents living with them and parents and children. The idea is that, and this is where micro-intervention comes in, that they all connect with each other and talk about what they saw on their feed that day. I think that bit of connection truly opens up doors and space for true belonging with each other. And that's been really fantastic as well, to be able to do that. A scheduled time, a ritual of connection with the family members, so they can see what the grandparents saw on WhatsApp, for example, or what the videos they watched, and then the kids can share what they saw on Snapchat or TikTok, and they'll kind of go back and forth, and they do that for 10 minutes every single night after dinner, and it just kind of keeps everybody engaged, and this way they're not shaming the youth, more so just meeting them where they're at and talking about these things.
My mind is slightly blown because it never occurred to me, as ubiquitous a problem as it is, it never occurred to me to ask someone what they were looking at on their feed. Like it just never occurred to me, and because it feels like something you do in the privacy by yourself, it doesn't feel like a conversation topic, but it should be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I tell parents to do that with teenagers specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, ask them like what they're interested in. So we're not creating this "I hate your phone" situation. It's more of like, what is engaging to you? What makes you happy? How did you feel when you posted that picture? Like, really getting into those pieces of it.
Yeah, and in some households, I will say that, there's a strategy that I created. It's a simple strategy, like connect, critique, conquer. And I think just the 3 C's and talking about those in families have been really like critical. So the connect piece is like, how do you connect with each other, which is what I just talked about. The critiquing piece is how do you critique the content that you see online, the clickbaits and like all the other things that people are exposed to. And then the last part, the conquering, is conquering it together. The collaboration is very important because individuals of all ages should feel like they have agency and autonomy when it comes to decision making, right? And so I think the 3 C's have also been very, very important.
To make sure that's really clear, can you actually walk through the 3 steps? For example, someone sees an image of someone in Hollywood looking perfect. Can you talk us through those 3 C's? Like, how do you critique that?
Sure, yeah. So first part would be the connect piece first. So you connect about what they saw. So sharing, and expressing feelings and thoughts about what they're looking at or what they observed. The critique part would be, is this useful? Is this helpful? What is their life like? How do you compare their life to yours? What's missing? What's the void that you're feeling, that you're thinking, that you want to work on? And then the conquering piece together, I think, would be about how do you then establish some rules and guidelines and maybe some directions around how do you move forward afterwards, right? So like, if this person looked really phenomenal, it's a celebrity or something that they've seen online, what do you do about it after by just collaborating on those conversations together to say, how do I change my algorithm or the feed to make sure that they're not constantly being fed with those things, because technology will do that to you. The more they know that you're engrossed in something, the more content similar to that you'll get. So I think those 3 C's have been very important.
Great.
I was going to say, along those lines, just with AI, just rising exponentially, I think that critique portion is so important.
Yes.
My parents, they're not of a technology generation, but I remember my dad was saying I saw on YouTube that cars, they already have flying cars and they're going to come out, and I was thinking okay, I have a choice here. I could be like, no, Dad. Right? Which would be the easier and faster one. Or I could be like, let me see. Show me, where did you see that? And he showed me the channel or whatever. And I was like, yeah, see, Dad, look at this part here. See, it kind of looks wonky. I think that's fake, right? And just sort of helping him understand that you do have to check the source and still use critical thinking when you look at all of these sources. That doesn't excuse you from having to do any, critical thinking on your own. And I think that's maybe one of the biggest the problems I have with technology, is that it takes away the need for critical thinking.
Speaking of ChatGPT, AI. What are the thoughts about AI? Obviously, it's here. There's no way around it. How do people put guardrails on it? How do people any tips for people as they navigate this world? Yeah.
I think using it as a resource rather than fact, right? So I think to me, I look at it as another reference point to look at, to see as I gather information about something. We're talking a lot to my daughter about it, who's 11 right now. But she's, we're helping her with math. And so you can go on ChatGPT and say, solve this problem for me. And it will tell you exactly how to do it. For us, that's great because we don't know what she's doing in there.
It's so true.
But we want her to be able to critically think through that problem and get there. So I think being able to use it again as just a reference point is really good. Okay. We talk a lot to these kids too about not plagiarizing and things like that. And it's hard to really get them to understand what plagiarism is
Yeah.
at this point. So being able to go, okay, you can pull from things from this thing, but you can't use it as your whole answer here too.
One of the things I've been really trying to do more is to talk about language. So, for instance, we often talk about technology creating problems for society or AI, and I think we have to get more specific, particularly as adults, when we're talking about this with young people. Are we talking about generative AI? Are we talking about AI companions? Are we talking about AI that's being used to create the next Nobel Prize, innovation? What kind of AI, what kind of technology? And I think that specificity comes from experience. And when I talk to adults, I think there's a lot of digital literacy, but maybe not fluency around AI. And I talk to adults all the time, Fortune 500 organizations, senior leaders who are managing AI teams. They've never seen an algorithm before. If you ask somebody, have you seen an algorithm? Could you draw me a picture of what an algorithm looks like? Most people can't.
I couldn't.
And it was an aha moment for me too. I was helping my daughter with the project for her senior year. We were working on this AI project, and I was like ChatGPTing, how does an algorithm work? And I realized it was the beginning step is understanding how it works, and then playing alongside. Maybe you learn how it works with your young person, or you have them teach you how it works, so that you can have the language to understand what's good and what's bad, where are the risks, and it's not just AI. We really understand it in a deeper way. That was really important. And then I think also just being able to not be afraid of it. There's so much fear around AI, and even among school children. I had the opportunity to talk yesterday to a group of 8th grade girls, and they were saying they have not talked about AI in school at all. So I asked the teachers, I said, are there programs coming for AI? They said, oh, well, there's no curriculum yet for teaching AI in school. So maybe once there's curriculum, then we'll teach it. But the world is going on. The world is happening. And so in the interim, until the schools start teaching it, really falls to adults and caring adults in their lives to show the way. And to really be able to show the way, we have to understand it ourselves.
I so believe the amount of fear mongering around it, but there's no actual resources to become literate, to make it familiar, to make it comprehensive. It's interesting. What does an algorithm look like?
It looks like a bunch of code, but essentially what is happening is it's a 7-step process that starts with a question, a prompt, and then you gather data, and then you sort the data into different buckets, and then you prioritize, like what information do you go after? You begin to test that information, then you go put it out into the world, and then you check the safeguards. So those steps are really important, but the process of ordering information is where I think it's most helpful to our young people, because they don't understand, well, how could this be biased, or how could this not be true? Well, it's because you said to give it this information when what you really wanted was this information. Yes. So what we're asking and what we're getting will shift as we become more specific and we understand what we're doing. Yeah. It can boost critical thinking, or it can make you completely stupid. Right?
If you don't think submit to it. Right.
Yeah,
so that makes us, I think, the parents, the guardrails. I mean, I really do think, and when you ask, well, what else can we do? I know that Jeremy knows this because we've talked a lot about games before, but when a parent's like, oh my gosh, Fortnite, like when Fortnite first came out, which many of you probably don't know or don't care, but when it came out, probably almost now 8 years ago, I had so many parents asking me, what is this Fortnite thing? And I was like, I don't know. You could maybe download it. Maybe you could play it. Try to figure out what that is.
It's hard.
So I made like a Fortnite guide, and I told parents, oh, these are the V-Bucks, and this is what you do. And there was all this lingo, and they were like, oh my God, doctor, we didn't know what all this meant. And I was like, but you didn't even try. You didn't even try to understand. So, I've downloaded, Character AI because I want to know, what does this actually do? I have ChatGPT and I've messed with it so that when my daughters ask me, hey, daddy, I want to download this app to use it, I have some experience with it. I think that's the best we can do right now as parents. Try it, experience it, try to trick it. try to see where the little, like pitfalls are, and then make our kids aware, like, hey, if you're going to use this, I think you should, only use it for this specific activity, maybe don't use it to put in your math homework, but like, like give them very specific boundaries on how to use it, and then monitoring, which I know as parents, like, hey, we love to just kind of outsource, right? Like, it's been a long day. Yeah, you can be on your iPad or your phone or whatever, but like having that moment where you say, hey, I actually want to take a look at your phone. Let me see what you've been up to. I think we have a duty and a responsibility to monitor our kids. And I think as parents, we have to be very engaged with our kids and know what they're doing so that we can give them feedback. And you learn to step back slowly and appreciate that they're still going to make mistakes. They may still see things that they shouldn't see. And creating an environment in your home where you can talk about that stuff. I mean, we've had stuff happen in the news, which I'm not going to bring up, that I've said, hey, how did you guys deal with that? Like, what did you do, like, when you saw that content? And then we could just process it together. And I was glad I could process it with them, because I know I cannot prevent them from seeing everything. They can go to a friend's house for a sleepover and see something on a device that I have no control over. But if I've created an environment in my house where we can talk about everything, then I'm not worried. I'm not worried about that. They're going to come home and I'll ask, hey, have you seen anything recently that you had questions about or concerned you or made you feel weird? And we have an open, honest conversation.
Great. Yeah.
I try to frame it as, I'm not trying to bust you. I'm not trying to catch you doing anything wrong. What I'm looking for is, I want to believe that you are more and more responsible as you age, because I'm going to give you more and more responsibility as you age. If I gave a 2-year-old a butcher knife and it cut off his finger, that's on me. That's not on the kid. I gave you way too much responsibility for that. So I want you, as you age, to prove like that you can handle the responsibilities that I'm giving you, so that I know when to pull back and when I can go forward with that. So when I look at your phone, it's not to bust you. It's to be like, oh, excellent. Okay, all of the things are as they should be, right? Like, they're following the rules. They are, engaging in a healthy way with stuff, even if it's a little bit cringy sometimes. Like, nothing is so far over the line that I can't trust you with this device, right? Same with computers, same with kind of anything. And so, as we got closer and closer to the car, I'm like, I need to be able to trust you with the car.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like I need lots and lots of ways to be able to build up trust in you. And so that, it was a responsibility thing more than a trying to catch you doing something bad. It was, I'm looking for you to do something good.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of parents needing a lot of support around what apps exist out there, like knowledge around those things, because sometimes they don't know what to look at and where to look. And there's like apps that hide the other apps too, right? Where it's like, they know the game now, they know how to play it. So I think just education for parents, but then it also reminded me of when we were talking about protection and safeguarding, and character.ai or Replica or other apps out there, I think can be very problematic and challenging if they're not used in an ethical way, right? And one of the things when I talk to parents is like guiding them to understand if true validation exists in their households or not, and what does that look like? So kind of going through that, because I think one of the best metaphors I can use it to describe it is that when you're not fed love on a silver spoon, you learn to lick it from a knife. And then,
Isn't that good?
Okay.
yeah, it's so powerful. And in the context of this, the knife would be, social media or other technological platforms. But if the love is present and if the belonging is present and accessible, then they're not going to turn to these platforms for that validation and that support or love or the likes or follows, right? I think it would start from home. It would be them turning to their loved ones to say, this is what I'm struggling with, and I trust you to be able to help me regulate this, right?
Great. Yeah. Anybody good?
Well, I just want to piggyback on all of what is being said, because I work with a lot of clients I work with where if they're not getting that need met of love and care, they will go on candidly.ai to be able to explore what does a boyfriend look like, what does a girlfriend look like, what type of conversations do I have? I don't know how to talk to someone I'm attracted to, so I'm gonna try it out on AI. But if there's open conversations, like Dr. Blank's talking about, there's open conversations at the house where there is open dialogue and ways to learn and be able to grow and be mentored and guided in a healthy way, and there's that space in the home to do that, then they're not going to be able to find whatever information they want online. It could be good or problematic. And so I think, there's a safe space in the home to just talk about stuff. We were talking about AI in the schools. What came to mind is like having the talk at home, right? Not about AI, but about other stuff, right? Growing up and being an adult, we also have talks, period, with our kids, just to be open and have that connection, I think, to be able to build trust and honesty and care. So when they do get to be 16, they can drive. When they do get to be out of the nest, they can trust, we can trust them and they can trust them to be out of the nest and to make good, healthy choices.
You know, it's interesting. 40% of youth are having romantic relationships with robots.
Yeah.
40%.
I don't like that stuff.
Even like there's disbelief about
Yeah,
this, obviously, even at this table, right?
But we're not
So-
curious enough. I don't think we ask enough questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of my superpowers, and I try to share with everybody, is just being curious. Just ask questions like, what are you interested in? What are you doing?
Let's be an investigator rather than an interrogator.
Yes.
It's like, let's
Yes.
listen to
Yes.
listen. Let's be curious rather than like criticize. Like, that's wrong. You did that. Or like, let's just listen.
I'm going to ask you because it's sort of all of this plays into, I think a lot of this is being navigated by a generation or generations that have never experienced this. So very rare in history is a generation faced with a problem that they have no experience with that their children are now going through. It is very rare to have, I mean, you could say travel is one thing, but you can't understand the concept. To literally have no experience with the thing that is now one of the greatest dangers in the world is very hard for parents and caretakers. And so I would love to ask you, if you could give any parent or teacher or caregiver just one mindset shift to help a younger person with their screen habits, what would it be? Because I don't think there's a single parent that we've talked to that doesn't want to do the right thing, but often there's fear, there's judgment for sure, because they just have no idea. So if you could give the parents a mindset shift, what would it be to help them reframe what this is going to be, what they can do?
I think one thing that hasn't changed throughout the years is people, meaning human connection and relationships have been a constant. And so even though technology is going very fast, there's a lot of good with it, we can continue to connect as people, connect with our kids and just like connect on a human level.
Yeah.
And help me better understand like where you are coming from, help me better understand like how I can connect with you. And then we can learn about the technology as we go along. But if we're able to invest in the person rather than focus on this being a problem, that's going to make a huge difference. A lot of things I see with my clients is like there's so much of a demonizing of a product or of a screen or of something. But if we just focus on the kiddo or on the person, man, it makes so much of a difference. It's a huge difference to be able to focus on. Let's just focus on the relationship, improve these dynamics, and then we can learn the stuff along the way. We can learn the stuff together on what technology, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
I was floored to learn there's actually a tech panic cycle, and it hits almost predictably every 15 years.
Amazing.
So if you think of today, AI, 15 years prior was the iPhone.
Mhm.
15 years before that was the modem and internet.
Mhm.
15 years before that began the personal computer. And I think it's interesting in this bell curve of panic that AI, I feel like we're still in this kind of like rise of hysteria, and we're just starting to be able to see over the curve. But right behind this panic cycle, I very quickly see AI agents and robotics. And so I wonder, as we as humans are learning about our responses to technology, what can we learn from the previous cycles, from the Fortnite cycle?
Yes.
What did we learn when smartphones came out? Well, we learned we needed boundaries. And now that AI is coming out, we're learning, okay, well, we need to have guardrails for this. So if we're gonna look ahead, what do we need to be putting in place now? How do we need to think about this? And how do we not keep panicking every time this happens, right? And I think that the way that we are approaching these issues becomes really important from a framework perspective, that they're not necessarily problems, that we reframe them as challenges that we've dealt with before, and we can do it again. And we feel like we are equipped with all the tools that we need to do that.
I think that also creates space for not knowing and for making mistakes, right? I've tried to get in the habit every time, my kid's like, oh, I didn't do so well on this assignment, whatever. The first thing I ask is, what did you learn, right? So, I failed at this. Well, what did you learn? Well, I learned X, Y, Z. And immediately the focus goes from shame and ineptitude to curiosity and hope that you can learn it, that you can master the skill. And I agree. I think if we were to apply that attitude towards life in general. Maybe we would give ourselves some slack, we'd cut others slack, right? And just the concept is we learn together. Why are we here? We're just here to learn together.
So it might be a language shift. I mean, it might be a language shift. That's what I hear you saying. One of the things that I've talked about with you in the past is parents will often come to both me and to Jeremy and be like, my kid is addicted to name it. And that language is so triggering. I mean, we usually think of addicts as being the worst, right? Drug addicts, people who are addicted have serious problems. But what if you shifted your language and said, I feel like your screen time use has been more problematic, or maybe it hasn't been the best, but using such strong language like addiction, I think actually puts people on the defensive, and especially young people. When you call them addicts, they're like, "Oh my gosh, like what's wrong with me? Like I'm broken." It's like, no, maybe we need to shift our language so that we can have more conversations about the problems and work through them.
Yeah.
So what you were saying it made me remember this book that I read a long time ago called A More Beautiful Question, and it was about like that fear of like when search engines first became a big thing, and everybody's like, well, you're cheating, right? You can't just go into Google and ask a thing. You need to go look it up in a dictionary or whatever. So this book was basically like, no, you don't, because that used to be the way that we garnered information, and we needed to remember all of it, right? Like our brain was the storage facility for that. The future is going to be not the answer to the question, but figuring out the question, because the better the question you can ask, the better the information that you get. And you don't have to store that in your brain. You can store it in the internet or on your computer or whatever, so that you can always go back to it. And I think like this is the same for AI, right? Of like, it's not about like what you get in the output. It's like, what are you putting into the input? And like, how much better can we do that to get what we're really looking for on the other end? And I think that's just going to grow exponentially as we get stuff.
And I think education, this is where education is struggling right now, because it's shifting from we're going to teach you the answers to we're going to teach you how to ask the questions.
Exactly.
And I think that has to happen. I think it's actually a beautiful thing, but it is a big shift.
You're shifting my mind in wonderful ways that I'm not seeing this as honestly, like I'm always sort of worried about it with my kids. There's always worry. It's never anything but worry. And so this shift is huge because it takes the pressure off parents to feel like they're as parents and guardians have to protect.
Have to know
and have to protect their children from this and the failure if they're not. So other tips.
Sure, I got a couple of tips. One, starting off as early as possible, have your kiddos be in charge or in control of their screen use, and when you have to transition away from screens and devices. So, for example, I've got a 9 and a 6-year-old, and when we'd come home, they'd be able to watch some TV before we ate dinner. And when I said, okay, we have a 5-minute warning, but then it's time to turn it off, I let them turn it off. Instead of me being in control of that, I let them turn off the actual device, where they could pause it. One kid pauses it, the other one actually turns it off. So that it's a small thing that gives them a little bit of agency and a little bit of control, that I can control this and getting away, rather than like it's being taken away from me by somebody else. So that's one tip.
Okay.
And then second tip is kind of like a practice of meditating, just having a practice of, as an adult or a teenager, just to meditate and just sitting down and being still and focusing on your breath, because it helps a couple different ways. For one, to be able to get away from this idea of I want to be stimulated by something all the time. Once you're done meditating for 10, 15, 20 minutes or so, you feel so present and just at ease, where you don't feel the need as much to be able to pull and to grab your phone as much. Because a lot of times there's this angst, it's like, I want to do something, but after you meditate, it's like, I can just be and I'm okay. And so I think that is just a practical action that can help responding to this desire to get on our devices all the time.
Great.
We scheduled board time. So this is the
that's
time where,
wonderful.
so you have to put away all the devices and you have to be creative or find something to do or meditate, whatever it might be. But it's scheduled boring time.
I think for a lot of us, we know our kids struggle at night, especially with teenagers and putting their phones away. But once again, going back to this start early thing, I know something that Amy and I did with the kids for a long time was at the end of the day, at bedtime, we would do 3 gratitudes. And we would just reflect on the day about 3 things that we're grateful for. And it had to be a very specific thing and a why. It couldn't always be, I'm grateful for mommy and daddy and the dog. It had to be, mommy, got me up this morning and she helped me make breakfast. And, like daddy picked me up and he told me a funny joke. And the dog
was cute, whatever it was, right? But like the next day it had to be something else very specific. You know, it could be mommy, daddy, and dog again, but it had to be something specific about those things. And we know from positive psychology and science that it helps reshape the brain and retrain the brain to scan the world for positive things. And sometimes I feel crazy as a dad because I'll ask my kids about their day and I'm like, oh my God, they never have a bad day. But I know that I was training them from like age 1 and 2 to scan their world for positivity. So I know they have bad things that happen during the day, but they're really good about scanning the world for goodness. And I think that, and I hope that they still do this sometimes at night. I don't put them to bed anymore because they're so big. But I know that I train them to do that so that they can go to bed knowing like, okay, yeah, I don't need my phone because I can stop and reflect on 3 things that were really important and meaningful in my day.
And I actually got this from Bobo because one of my vices on my phone is I love to read on Kindle and maybe obsessively. And which, you know, reading, how could it be bad, right? But he said one night, he said, Amy, you know, reading is great, but there's an opportunity cost, which was me. Like, he was like, you could spend time with me or you could be reading. And I was like, oh, you know, it's not that Fortnite's bad, it's that too much Fortnite's bad. So what is the opportunity cost? And I don't think we can teach our kids that word too early. Like, what is the cost benefit of this? How am I thinking about how much time I want to put towards it?
Yeah,
And one
there's a
thing I
price.
love that Bobo does is he started early saying to our kids, what's your schedule? I want you to go make a schedule for yourself. Even if it's 3 things for the day, you know, what do you want to accomplish? Because if they know where they're going, they can really clearly make that opportunity cost. If they have no plan, they don't know what they'd be missing out on.
And so for young adults and all, the idea of making a schedule.
Yeah,
Ah,
that's important.
and just for the day, just how would you tell someone to do that? Like if you sit down after this show is over, what should that include?
You do this all the time in the clinic. I'll turn it over
I
to you.
mean, I think you start with what do I aim to accomplish today? And when it's the kids in the summer, when I was a kid, my dad would make a schedule for me. I mean, it was really annoying. He would leave the house. I'd saunter downstairs at 8:30, and oh my gosh, I'm already 45 minutes late. He thought I was gonna get to 7:45, and my dad had every half hour, planned out for me. Vacuum, this, read. He'd leave free time in there sometimes, but for our kids, I'm like, look, you know that mommy said you got to wash the dishes, and you've got to practice your cello, and maybe you need to read a book, but it's summer, you want to have fun. So make sure that you schedule in, time for fun. And I remind them like, oh, well, your little sister's downstairs. She might want to watch a show with you for half an hour. Why don't you schedule some social time with your sister? And I have them make that schedule and then send it to me just so I know. I mean, I'm not going to really change it. I'm not going to make any, alterations, but I like them being intentional about how they spend their day. And then I want them to also hopefully leave a little time for dad, like, what are we going to do together? Like when I get home from work. So I think it's good for not just being productive, but it's also good for building relationship because you can actually say, hey, my intention is to spend time with my sister. My intention is to spend time with my dad and practice cello and have fun and run around outside. So I think that's something that parents, we can model. But I think, like you said, giving them agency is so important, so important.
Yes.
Yeah, one thing I want to piggyback off of on what you're saying on all of this was I have a worksheet I developed it's called Transferable Motivations Worksheet. And so we go over 3 different categories. What type of screen use are you doing, but specifically the type of screen use. So is it social media? What social media apps? What games are you playing? Specific games. And then what are you doing in those games? What are you doing on social media? And the next box are the reasons and the why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And so it could be very different. One could be for competition. One could be for social. One could be for entertainment. One could be just to escape. And then the bottom one is alternatives. What can you do to be able to meet these needs that's different than the screen device? So if you want to do something competitive, you're playing Valorant, you're playing Fortnite, very competitive, love to strategize, to compete, to win, and get better and better. But if Fortnite is causing a lot of problems for you, what if you were to go rock climbing? You can go and boulder, and may not be very good, but you can get better and better, and actually you can get good enough to compete and to win in tournaments, just like in Fortnite. What if you go to do the social element? You love to be able to connect with people, love to be able to kind of work together, and so it could be a team sport, could be soccer, could be something else, could be chess club. But if we're able to understand what the why is, the reasons behind it, then we can find alternatives that's meeting those needs. And so, again, these aren't bad. They're trying to fill a need in the first place. So if we can explore that and unpack that, then sure, you can go play Fortnite later, but you're getting your needs met. So this is the cherry on top. You're not going to Fortnite to be able to meet all your needs.
I'm so, again, I think I look at this with a lot of worry, and I think this conversation has really shifted that. of not feeling that it's something to worry about. It's something to manage, and something to integrate, and something to be thoughtful about. But I really think this whole conversation has completely shifted a lot of what I'm seeing here. And so I just wanted to say to all of you, thank you so much for your not just your expertise, but your time and your heart in coming here and bringing the information. I really think it would be very hard for someone to see this and not walk away with tangible ways that they are active, proactive, and have agency over this than reactive. And so thank you all very, very much. Really, really appreciate it. It's changed so much in the way I'm thinking about things. It really has. So thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day.